Chapter 8. The Vijnanavada Sect and AMP. 100 Dharmas of the Mahayana. Dharmalaksana Sect, which holds that all is mind, in its ultimate nature. The doctrine of idealism school concerns, chiefly with the facts, or specific characters, lakshana, of all elements, on which the theory of idealism was built, in order to elucidate that no element is separate from ideation. Although it is usually expressed by saying that all dharmas are mere ideation, or that there is nothing but ideation, the real sense is quite different. It is idealistic because all elements are in some way or other always connected with ideation. This doctrine was based on the teaching of the Buddha in the Avatamsaka Sutra that the three worlds exist only in ideation. According to ideation theory, the outer world does not exist, but the internal ideation presents appearance, as if it were an outer world. The whole world is therefore of either illusory or causal nature. No permanent reality can be found. In India, two famous monks named Wu Xiaoqiu and Tian Tsen wrote some sastras on Vijnana. They had an outstanding disciple named Chishan, an Indian monk living at Nalanda Monastery. Later, Chishan established the Vijnanavada school and contributed much to the arrangement of the Buddhist canons. In China, Xuanzang, to whom Chishan handed over the sastra, founded this school in his native land. Later, the school was also called Dharmalaksana Fatsang, and was led by Kuei-chi, a great disciple of Xuanzang. On scriptures, the Vijnanavada based on 5 sutras. First, the Sandinirmikana Sutra, the chief text of the Dharmalaksana school, translated into Chinese by Xuanzang around the 5th century A.D. Second, the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the Flower Ornament Sutra, Flower Garland Sutra, a voluminous Mahayana text that contains a disparate collection of parts. Among its more important sections are the Sutra on the 10 levels, Dasabhumika Sutra, which describes the 10 Bodhisattva levels, Bhumi, and the Flower Array Sutra, Gandavyuha Sutra, which tells the story of Siddhartha's quest to attain Buddhahood. The Avatamsaka is the philosophical basis of the Chinese Huayan Keigan Jap, Wayne Core school, which particularly emphasizes the sutra's teachings concerning the interpretation and connectedness of all phenomena. Avatamsaka means a garland, while in Gandavyuha, Ganda means a flower of ordinary kind, and Vyuha an orderly arrangement or array. Gandavyuha means flower decoration. Avatamsaka is one of the profound Mahayana sutras, embodying the sermons given by the Buddha immediately following his perfect enlightenment. The Gandavyuha is the Sanskrit title for a text containing the account of Siddhartha, the young man who, wishing to find how to realize the ideal life of bodhisattvahood, is directed by Manjusri the Bodhisattva to visit spiritual leaders one after another, in various departments of life, and in various forms of existence, altogether numbering 53. This is the basic text of the Avatamsaka school. It is one of the longest and most profound sutras in the Buddhist canon, and records the highest teaching of Buddha Sakyamuni immediately after enlightenment. It is traditionally believed that the sutra was taught to the bodhisattvas and other high spiritual beings while the Buddha was in samadhi. The sutra has been described as the epitome of Buddhist thought, Buddhist sentiment, and Buddhist experiences, and is quoted by all schools of Mahayana Buddhism. The sutra compares the whole universe to the realization of Vairocana Buddha. Its basic teaching is that myriad things and phenomena are the oneness of the universe, and the whole universe is myriad things and phenomena. After examining the sutra, we find that there were in the beginning many independent sutras, which were later compiled into one encyclopedic collection. As the subject matters treated in them are all classified under one head, and they came to be known as Avatamsaka. The Avatamsaka is the second highest sutra of the Mahayana tradition, teaching the unfathomable and incomprehensible, for the human mind, world of the Mahabodhisattvas. The basic text of the Avatamsaka school. It is one of the longest sutras in the Buddhist canon, and records the highest teaching of Buddha Shakyamuni immediately after enlightenment. It is traditionally believed that the sutra was taught to the Bodhisattvas and other high spiritual beings, while the Buddha was in Samadhi. The sutra has been described as the epitome of Buddhist thought, Buddhist sentiment, and Buddhist experience, and is quoted by all schools of Mahayana Buddhism. Third, the Surangama Sutra, also called the Sutra of the Heroic One. This profound writing, originally in Sanskrit, written in the 1st century AD, the sutra was brought to China by Paramartha and translated into Chinese, with the assistance of Wang Yung about 717 AD. Some said that it was angered the Tang Emperor, that this had been done without first securing the permission of the government. So Wang Yung was punished and Paramartha was forced to return to India. It is widely developed and venerated in all the Mahayana Buddhist countries. Among other things, the sutra helps Buddhist followers exercising bodhisattva magga. It deals at length with the successive steps for the attainment of supreme enlightenment. It also emphasizes the power of samadhi, through which enlightenment can be attained. In addition, the sutra also explains the various methods of emptiness meditation through the practice of which everyone can realize enlightenment. Fourth, the Yogacarabhumi Sutra. This sutra is composed by Dharmatratta and Buddhasena in the 5th century AD, on the methods of meditation for the Hinayana. The sutra was translated into Chinese by Buddhabhadra. The sutra was divided into 5 parts, the 17 stages presenting the progression on the path to enlightenment, with the help of the Yogacara teaching. This is the most important part. Interpretations of these stages as follows. Explanation of these sutras from which the Yogacara doctrine of the stages draws support. Classifications contained in these sutras. And topics from the Buddhist canon, Sutra, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidharma. Fifth, the Sutra on the Buddha's appearance, with adorned virtues. On Sastras, the Vijnanavada based on 8 Sastras. First, the Yogacarabhumi Sastra, the work of Asana, said to have been dictated to him in, or from the Tusita heaven by Maitreya, about the doctrine of the Yogacara, or Vijnanavada. The Sastra was translated into Chinese by Xuanzang, is the foundation text of this school. Treatise on the stages of the Yogacara. This is the fundamental work of the Yogacara school, which the author might have been either Asana or Maitreyanatha. Second, the Vijnaptimitrata Trimsika. The idealistic school of Vajrabandhu is a reformed Yogacara system, and its fundamental text is Vajrabandhu's Vijnaptimitrata Trimsika, a versified text on the theory of mere ideation in 30 stanzas, of which the first 24 are devoted to the special character, Svalaksana, of all Dharmas, the next 2 to the nature, Svabhava, of all Dharmas, and the last 4 to the stages of the noble personages. Third, the Sastra on the 100 divisions of all mental qualities. The Sastra on the 100 divisions of all mental qualities, or the door to the knowledge of universal phenomena, translated into Chinese by Xuanzang. Fourth, the Abhidharma, higher Dharma, or the analytic doctrine of Buddhist canon, or basket of the supreme teaching. Abhidharma is the third of the 3 divisions of the Buddhist canon, the study and investigation of the Buddha Dharma. Abhidharma was translated into Chinese as Great Dharma, or Incomparable Dharma. However, in many later Mahayana works, the term Abhidharma is always referring to Hinayana teachings. As a matter of fact, Abhidharma consists of books of psychological analysis and synthesis, earliest compilation of Buddhist philosophy and psychology concerning psychological and spiritual phenomena contained in the discourses of the Buddha, and his principal disciples are presented in a systematic order. The 5th sastra is the exoteric secret scriptures. The 6th sastra is the Mahayana Sutralamkaratika, an exposition of the teaching of the Vijnanavada school. 7th, the Mahayana Samparigraha Sastra, a collection of Mahayana sastras, ascribed to Asana, of which 3 translations were made into China. The 8th sastra is the Vijnaptimatrata Sikha. There are 100 divisions of all mental qualities, and they're agents of the consciousness-only school, or 5 groups of 100 modes, or things. On mind, there are 8 perceptions, or forms of consciousness. There are 51 mental ideas. As mentioned above, there are 100 divisions of all mental qualities, and they're agents of the consciousness-only school, or 5 groups of 100 modes, or things. 51 mental states are divided into 6 parts. Part 1 is the 5 universally interactive mental states, Sarvatraga. The first mental state is the attention, Manaskara, or paying attention on something. The second mental state is the contact, Sparsh, which means after paying attention on something, one has a tendency to want to come in contact with it. The third mental state is the feeling, Vedana, which means once contact is established, feeling arises. The fourth mental state is the conceptualization, Samjna, which means once feeling arises, conceptualization occurs. The fifth mental state is the deliberation, Satana, which means once there is conceptualization, then deliberation sets in. Part 2 is the 5 particular states, Vinyata. The sixth mental state is the desire, Chanda. Desire means to want for something. The seventh mental state is the resolution, Adhimoksha. Resolution means supreme understanding, without any doubt at all. The eighth mental state is the recollection, Smrti. Recollection means remembering clearly. The ninth mental state is the concentration, Samadhi. Concentration means exclusively pay attention to something. The 10th mental state is the judgment, Prajna. Judgment means ability to judge which average person possesses. Part 3 is the 11 wholesome states, Kushala. The 11th mental state is the faith, Shraddha. Faith means to have a sense of belief, or an attitude of faith. The 12th mental state is the vigor, Virya. Once one has faith, one should put it into action with vigor. The 13th mental state is the shame, Hri. Shame also means repentance. The 14th mental state is the remorse, or embarrassment, Apatreya. The 15th mental state is the sense of greed, Alobha. The 16th mental state is the absence of anger, Advesha. The 17th mental state is the absence of ignorance, Amoha. The 18th mental state is the light ease, Prashradi. Light ease, an initial expedient in the cultivation of Zen. Before Samadhi is actually achieved, one experiences light ease. The 19th mental state is the non-laxness, Apramada, or to follow the rules. The 20th mental state is the renunciation, Upeksha. Renunciation means not to grasp on the past, but to renounce everything within the activity skandha, which is not in accord with the rules. The 21st mental state is the non-harming, Ahimsa, which means not harming any living beings. Part 4 is the 6 fundamental afflictions, Klesha. The 22nd mental state is the greed, Raga. Greed for wealth, sex, fame, food, sleep, or greed for forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch. The 23rd mental state is the anger, Pratiga. Not obtaining what one is greedy for leads to anger. The 24th mental state is the ignorance, Moha. Once anger arises, one has nothing but ignorance. The 25th mental state is the arrogance, Mana. Arrogance means pride and conceit, which causes one to look down on others. The 26th mental state is the doubt, Visakitsa. Cannot believe or make up one's mind on something. The 27th mental state is the improper views, Drishti. Part 5 is the 20 Derivative afflictions Upakalsha. Derivative afflictions include 10 minor grade afflictions, 2 intermediate grade afflictions, and 8 major grade afflictions. 10 minor grade afflictions include wrath, hatred, covering, rage, deceit, conceit, harming, flattery, jealousy, and stinginess. The 20th mental state is the wrath, krodha. Wrath which comes suddenly, and is a combination of anger and hatred. The 29th mental state is the hatred upanaha. Hatred happens when one represses the emotional feelings deep inside. The 30th mental state is the rage, pradesa. Rage, of which the emotional reaction is much more severe than hatred. The 31st mental state is the hiding, raksha. Hiding means covering or concealing something inside. The 32nd mental state is the deceit, maya. Deceit means false kindness or phone intention. The 33rd mental state is the flattery, shathya. The 34th mental state is the conceit, mada. Conceit means to think high of self and low of others. The 35th mental state is the harming, vihimsa. Harming means to want to harm other people. The 36th mental state is the jealousy, irshaya. Jealousy means to become envious of those who surpass us in one way or other. The 37th mental state is the stinginess, matsarya. One is tight about one's wealth, not wishing to share it with others. 2 intermediate grade afflictions include lack of shame and lack of remorse. The 38th mental state is the lack of shame, arikya. Lack of shame means to do wrong, but always feel self-righteous. The 39th mental state is the lack of remorse, anapatrapya. Lack of remorse means never examine to see if one is up to the standards of others. 8 major grade afflictions include lack of faith, laziness, laxiness, torpor, restlessness, distraction, improper knowledge, and scatteredness. The 40th mental state is the lack of faith, ashradya. Lack of faith means not trust or believe in anyone, not to believe in the truth. The 41st mental state is the laziness, kausidya. Laziness means not to try to eliminate unwholesome deeds and to perform good deeds. The 42nd mental state is the laxiness, pramada. Laxiness means not to let the body and mind to follow the rules, but does whatever one pleases. The 43rd mental state is the torpor, sthayana. Torpor means to feel obscure in mind, or to fall asleep in the process. The 44th mental state is the restlessness, adhatya. One is agitated and cannot keep still. The 45th mental state is the distraction, mushatasmriti. Distraction means to lose proper mindfulness. The 46th mental state is the improper knowledge, asamprajanya. One become obsesses with defilement. The 47th mental state is the scatteredness, vikshipa. Part 6 is the 4 unfixed mental states, aniyata. The 48th mental state is the falling asleep, to obscure the mind, middha. The 49th mental state is the regret, kaudritya, or repent for wrongdoings in the past. The 50th mental state is the investigation, vitarka means to cause the mind unstable. The 51st mental state is the correct examination, vikara means to pacify the mind. There are 6 physical and mental organs: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And there are 6 modes of sense: matter, sound, smell, taste, touch, things. There are 24 indefinites, or not interactive dharmas, or unconditioned elements, or non-interactive activity dharmas, also called 24 indefinites or unconditioned elements. Acquisition or attainment, prapti, life faculty or life, jivatendriya, generic similarity or nature of sharing similar species, nikaya sabhaga, dissimilarity or nature of making different species, visabhaga, no thought samadhi or meditative concentration in thoughtless heaven, asamjna samapati, samadhi of extinction or meditative concentration in extinction, nirodha samapati. Reward of no thought or facts obtained by thoughtless meditation, asamjnika. Bodies of nouns or names, namakaya. Bodies of sentences or words, padakaya. Bodies of phonemes or letters, vyanjanakya. Birth, impermanence, anityata. Becoming or revolution, pravritti. Distinction, pradhaniyama. Interaction or union, yoga. Speed, java. Sequence or succession, anakrama. Time, kala. Direction, desha. Numeration, samkhya. Combination or totality, samagri. And discontinuity or differentiation, anyathatva. 6 inactive or metaphysical concepts. From 95 to 100, there are 6 unconditioned dharmas. Or 6 inactive or metaphysical concepts. The unconditioned dharma, the ultimate inertia from which all forms come. The noumenal source of all phenomenal. Those dharmas which do not arise or cease. And are not transient, such as nirvana, the dharma body. Unconditioned merits and virtues are the causes of liberation from birth and death. First, unconditioned empty space, akasha. Second, unconditioned extinction, pradasamkhya nirada, which is attained through selection. Extinction obtained by knowledge. Third, unconditioned extinction, apratasamkhya, which is unselected. Extinction not by knowledge, but by nature. Fourth, unconditioned unmoving extinction, anindya. Extinction by a motionless state of heavenly meditation. Fifth, unconditioned extinction of feeling, samjnavadetanaroda. Extinction by the stoppage of idea and sensation by an arhat. Sixth, unconditioned true suchness, tahata. The key points of the Vijnanavada is to refute tenets. This sect refutes the belief in the reality of the ego and things. First, the parakalpita laksana, or false existence. According to the mind-only school, this is one of the 3 kinds of existence for everything. False existence, also called character of soul imagination, those of false existence, which are at the same time bereft of an original substance, a dravya, just like a ghost that exists merely in one's imagination, but not in reality. Parakalpita is a wrong discrimination of judgment, and proceeds from rightly comprehending the nature of objects, internal as well as external, and also relationship existing between object, as independent individuals, or as belonging to a genus. It is the perception of subject and object, characterized by our experience of ourselves as separate, discrete beings in opposition to an objective external world. This is the imagined nature, the kind of existence which the unenlightened person ascribes to the everyday world. It is unreal, and only has a conventional existence, which is projected by the activity of an unenlightened mind. It is the product of the falsifying activity of language, which imputes duality to the mutually dependent flow of mental dharmas. These dualistic phenomena are really only imagined. Second, the paratantra. Paratantra, literally, depending on another, is a knowledge based on some fact, which is not, however, in correspondence with the real nature of existence. The characteristic feature of this knowledge is that it is not altogether a subjective creation, produced out of pure nothingness, but it is a construction of some objective reality, on which it depends for material. Therefore, its definition is that which arises depending upon a support or basis, and it is due to this knowledge that all kinds of objects, external and internal, are recognized, and in these individuality and generality are distinguished. The paratantra is thus equivalent to what we nowadays call relative knowledge or relativity, while the parakalpita is the fabrication of one's own imagination or mind. In the dark, a man steps on something, and imagining it to be a snake is frightened. This is parakalpita, a wrong judgment, or an imaginative construction, attended an unwarranted excitement. He now bends down and examines it closely, and finds it to be a piece of rope. This is paratantra, relative knowledge. He does not know what the rope really is and thinks it to be a reality. individual or ultimate. While it may be difficult to distinguish sharply between the Parakalpita and the Paratantra from these brief statements or definitions, the latter seems to have at least a certain degree of truth as regards objects themselves. But the former implies not only an intellectual mistake, but some effective function set in motion, along with the wrong judgment. When an object is perceived as an object existing externally or internally and determinable under the categories of particularity and generality, the Paratantra form of cognition takes place. Accepting this as real, the mind elaborates on it further both intellectually and effectively, and this is the Parakalpita form of knowledge. It may be after all more confusing to apply our modern ways of thinking to the older ones, especially when these were actuated purely by religious requirements and not at all by any disinterested philosophical ones. Third, the Parinishpanna or the perfected knowledge, and corresponds to the right knowledge, Samyajnana, and suchness, Tathata, of the 5 Dharmas. It is the knowledge that is available when we reach the state of self-realization, by going beyond names and appearances and all forms of discrimination or judgment. It is suchness itself. It is the Tathagata Garbhahridya. It is something indestructible. The rope is now perceived in its true perspective. It is not an object constructed out of causes and conditions and now lying before us as something external. From the absolutist point of view, which is assumed by the Lankavatara, the rope is a reflection of our own mind. It has no objectivity apart from the latter. It is in this respect non-existent. But the mind out of which the whole world evolves is the object of the Parinishpanna, perfectly attained knowledge. Important methods of cultivation of the Vijnanavada is to break or disprove the false and make manifest the right. According to the Vijnanavada school, the doctrine of the school has 3 main aspects. The first aspect is the refutation itself of a wrong view, at the same time, the elucidation of a right view. Refutation is necessary to save all sentient beings who are drowned in the sea of attachment, while elucidation is also important in order to propagate the teaching of the Buddha. First, refutation of all wrong views. Refutation means to refute all views based on attachment. Also views such as the self or Atman, the theory of Brahmanic philosophers, the pluralistic doctrines of the Buddhist Abhidharma schools, Vaidhesika, Kosa, and the dogmatic principles of Mahayana teachers are never passed without a detailed refutation. The realistic, or all exists, and the nihilistic, or nothing exists, are equally condemned. Second, elucidation of a right view. According to Professor Takakusu, in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, the Madhyamika schools strongly believe that the truth can be attained only by negation or refutation of wrong views within and without Buddhism, and of errors of both the great and small vehicles. When retaining wrong views or error, one will be blind to reason. How can a blind man get a right view, without which the 2 extremes can never be avoided? The end of verbal refutation is the dawn of the middle path. Refutation and refutation only can lead to the ultimate truth. The middle path, which is devoid of name and character, is really the way of elucidation of a right view. According to the Vijnanavada, the wisdom attained from investigating and thinking about philosophy, or Buddha truth, of the sutras and abhidharmas. This includes the first 4 kinds of only consciousness. First, the stage of thought food. Thought food, or mental food. Meditation as a kind of mental food. Supplies for body or soul. Food, almsgiving, wisdom. Second, the stage of intensified effort. The stage of earnest endeavor. The second of the 4 stages of the sect of consciousness. Third, the stage of thorough understanding. The stage in which practitioner is able to understand everything thoroughly. Fourth, the practice stage. the stage acquired by the practice of all good conduct. Fifth, the supreme class, or stage of Buddhahood. The supreme class or stage of Buddhahood, the highest of the 5 stages of attainment of Buddhahood, according to the results of cultivation in the Vijnanavada. Practitioners in the Vijnanavada believe that eventually they will obtain both 2 wisdoms and 4 wisdom. These are 2 kinds of supreme wisdoms according to Buddhist theories. The teachings in the Vijnanavada also recognize 2 wisdoms. First, fundamental wisdom. Fundamental, original, or primal wisdom, source of all truth and virtue, knowledge of fundamental principles, intuitive knowledge or wisdom, in contrast with acquired wisdom. Second, specific knowledge. Detailed or specific knowledge, or wisdom succeeding upon, or arising from fundamental knowledge. Differentiating knowledge, discrimination of phenomena, as contrast with knowledge of the fundamental identity of all things. The teachings in the Vijnanavada also recognize 4 wisdoms. First, the Kriyanastana, the wisdom derived from the 5 senses, the wisdom of perfecting the double work of self-welfare and the welfare of others, corresponds to the air, and is associated with Amagasiti and the north. Second, the Pratyaveksanajnana, the wisdom derived from wisdom of profound insight, or discrimination, for exposition and doubt destruction, corresponds to water, and is associated with Amitabha and the west. According to the Tiantai and Shingon, Amida is superior over the 5 wisdom Buddhas, the Ani Buddhas, even though he governs the western quarter, not the center. Of the 5 wisdom Buddhas, Amitabha of the west may be identical with the central Mahavairakana, the Buddha of homocosmic identity, Amitabha's original vows, his attainment of Buddhahood of infinite light and life, and his establishment of the land of bliss are all fully described in the Sukhavati text. Third, the Samadhijnana, the wisdom which derived from Manovijnana, or Mano-consciousness, wisdom in regard to all things equally and universally, corresponds to fire, and is associated with Ratnasambhava and the south. Fourth, the Adarsanajnana, the great ground mirror wisdom, derived from Aleya Vijnana, Aleya consciousness, reflecting all things, corresponds to the earth, and is associated with Exobia and the east.